Okay, so wrapping up about TWIM and the meditation itself is my intention here. We spoke a bit about my very basic understanding of what the Buddha, some of what he discovered, and the things that really have been resonating with me about the practice, how it's empowering and how it's very simple. It's very simple and it's relaxing. One of the steps is, if we go back to the 6 R's, recognize that the mind has gone somewhere. Release that thought right in mid-sentence or whatever. Relax the body and the mind. Re-smile. Return to the vehicle or the awareness of the loving kindness, and repeat as necessary. And to me, that just resonates, When I first connected with different meditations, they all had their own different purposes, as I've shared, and some felt more resonant than others, but a lot of them, like I said, I didn't really do that much research. I just kind of bumped into this one and, okay, well, there are some, this one doesn't really resonate. This one resonates pretty good. I didn't really research like other ones. Kind of bumping in, but so far this one resonates the most by far. And so I'll really just share a little bit of comparisons from my own personal experience with my experience with Goenka Vipassana. And again, much respect and gratitude to Goenka Ji, and I'm not saying TWIM or Goenka is better or worse or anything like that. I'm just sharing my own personal experience, putting information out there so that you can use if you wish. The practice being the main, biggest difference that I see. I like to smile. I'm doing these things. I'm not doing it to there's theoretical, or maybe people will say they're non-theoretical, but possibilities about what happens after I pass away, whether it's rebirth, reincarnation, or going to heaven or going to hell, or these things. And I'm not saying those do or don't exist. I'm saying currently I'm not able to speak from personal experience about whether or not they do, but I can speak about my experience right now, and I can say that with an unskillfully trained mind, I have experienced lots of suffering, lots of sadness, lots of depression, lots of pain that as I look back on is not necessary. And I even do it even to this day. I'm in the dark room and I'm experiencing the mind with its unskillfully trained patterns and habits of looking into the past and feeling regret and saying, oh, you could have done this, you would have had more money, then you could help these people, or oh, you shouldn't have done that, you hurt that person and you're a bad person. These are the suffering that's unnecessary. Yes, does it exist that I could have done other things and have more money and I could help people with that? Yes, but that's not good or bad. That's just another thing. I mean, I could go climb this tree right now if I wanted to. I could pick this up and put it down. It's not good or bad. There's infinite possibilities. But unskillfully trained mind has said that some are good and some are bad, and so subsequently caused my own self-suffering. And so currently I'm most interested with the meditation practice and with life of releasing those old patterns and getting to a place where there's as little or no self-created suffering, and I'm just taking everything in as neutral, just equanimous and just at peace. So that's my desired end state. And so subsequently, when I look at the practice of whatever it may be, I want it to be leading in that direction. That's why I said I have nothing against the manifestation or the visualization worlds or whatnot, but that's going in a different direction than me. I don't want to, even if I was really skilled at manifesting, who I know some people who say they really are, and their dream home pops up. It's got the same color door, everything right in the type of neighborhood or environment that they want, and they find it and they get the perfect deal on it. And I know people who say that this is how their life goes, and that's fantastic. I'm stoked for you. I'm happy. But I don't currently, that's not going in the direction that I'm interested in going, because I don't want to be wanting things to be different. It doesn't mean I don't recognize that they can be improved and I move in that direction, but wanting and being aware that there are other possibilities, to me, are two different things. And so I'm currently most interested in what I just shared. And what I've experienced with TWIM seems to be very aligned with that. The practice, it's about letting go. The mind is going somewhere and letting go. Mind is going somewhere, letting go. There's tension in the body, letting go. Tension in the mind, letting go. And this is what I'm really interested in. If I'm walking down the street and someone bumps into me, I don't want to be holding on to that for days or hours or even minutes. So I want to let it go. And this practice is all about letting go. It's about smiling. I like to smile. I like to be happy. I'm interested in this experience that I'm in right now. And there are some meditations where there's really strong focus, like I said, really strong focus. And that gives really incredible skills and abilities, but there's not a lot of space for happiness and smiling because I'm like this. And so there's not a lot of space for something that I'm interested in having it be a large part of my life experience. So this practice, with its real strong focus on happiness, Bhante Vimalaramsi, I'll share some of his videos, and he says over and over, smiling is key. We want you to smile. Bhante Ananda says, smiling is key. I would talk to him several times while I was in the dark retreat, and he said, how's the joy? It sounds like you might need some more joy. Don't lose priority of the joy. Joy, 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 joy. It's all they're talking about, And I've never been in any other meditation where people are saying that. Laughter as well. Bhante Vimalaramsi shares, and I can speak from very personal experience from before this practice where I didn't recognize it as much, and now that I have more awareness. When the mind is going in some sort of loop, especially I'll be in meditation, so I have a lot more awareness now. The mind is really quiet. As I said, going in these jhanas, the mind is disconnecting more and more. So there will be thoughts that come up, and sometimes they'll be pretty active. It'll be like going in, let's think about that past financial decision. Let it go. Let's think about that past let's pick up where we were, let it go. Now let's pick up where we were. It's just like reading dialogue. Sometimes that's just what it is. And so we're just 6Ring, recognizing that the mind's going away, 6Ring, letting it go, coming back. But after a while, that space that I mentioned where we relax and there's this space of no thought, that space expands and able to be in it longer and longer. But sometimes there's just these loopings. And as Bhante Vimalaramsi says, just laugh. Just laugh at the mind. It's doing this thing that it's so funny, it's all caught up in this story. It has no bearing whatsoever. It doesn't matter if I were to think every moment of the day for the rest of my life about some past potential financial decision that I did or didn't do. Besides the fact that I'm using all of my energy and time on that and feeling negative about it, otherwise it's not going to change my life at all, even if I thought about it for tens of thousands of hours. And the mind is so habituated to do it, it's funny. So laughter just changes things. It just makes them poof. I would be having some loop about some situation, whether it's with a family member or a friend or lover or myself, and feeling all of this angst or this injustice or bitterness. I can't believe this. Next time I should say this, and I need to tell them, I need to stand up, and I need to let them know, and this is and then just laugh, and it's just like what am I talking about? They're doing the best that they can, and I'm doing the best that I can, and this is what it is. So the practice, the Goenka practice, it's just not as focused on those things to my awareness, and so this one resonates more with me. Similarly, this one is very easy to incorporate throughout the day, and that was something that I've been looking for. And with the Goenka practice, that was one thing that I was challenged with. When I'm facing or experiencing something like some old patterns, some old fear patterns, or some anger, and I'm in conversation with someone and I'm feeling this anger or reactivity or defensive or insecurity, or I'm feeling stressed, and so the old patterns of like, well, what about some sort of sexual escape? Let's get on some dating apps, or let's look at pornography, or send some messages or something. The mind's like, no, we're done with that. But it's like, oh, this is what we've done so many years. Why not go back? And there's this craving, or something like that. When I'm eating, or I'm thinking about eating, and there's this craving of, oh, I really want this food. I want to maybe just eat more than I need because I just want to stuff myself. Well, it's a bit difficult to just drop right in and do like a body scan while I'm in conversation with someone. And that's the main practice of Goenka, or even to focus on the nostril breathing. Like, it's a bit difficult if I'm in conversation with you for me to partly kind of drop in and do some body scanning. It's difficult. But with this practice, one, the 6 R's work with everything. So I'm in conversation and I recognize there's some tension in the body and the mind's kind of going towards, this is not fair, this is not right, I need to stand up. And I relax the body and the mind, that opens up space. And the mind stops going in that direction. It's got that little brief space, and I can step back a bit and be like, yeah, I've gone in that direction before. That doesn't really seem to take me where I'm interested in. Maybe I just do this other part of TWIM, which is radiate loving kindness to these people, or radiate loving kindness to myself, and all of a sudden, instead of the mind being in this is not fair, it's very self-focused, it's very fear-focused, and like this, lack. It's in this expansive, as the Buddha describes the Brahma Viharas, which are how the mind goes, how TWIM uses. The first one is loving kindness, and then as we go into the jhanas, just naturally, the mind switches from this feeling of loving kindness, and it gets softer and subtler into this feeling of compassion, just this feeling of compassion. And we go into the jhanas further, and it becomes into this feeling of just tranquil happiness, just like soft, relaxed joy, just like, this is good. And then from there it goes, the mind keeps going into the jhanas, and then we experience just this equanimity of just like, I'm good. Mosquito lands and bites me, I'm good. Thought comes up and it starts going into this old thing, and I've 6R'd it 1,000 times and it's still doing it, I'm good. Let it do its thing, The memory of some interaction comes up where I feel I was harmed, I'm good. And so these are named the Brahma Viharas, which Vihara is another word of like abode, or where someone lives, Brahma being like the divine. It's like the divine place to live. These feelings of loving kindness, feeling of compassion, feeling of this soft, tranquil joy, happiness, and a feeling of equanimity. And so when I'm with someone and I'm radiating these emotions, or these experiences, that's something I can do while in conversation. Or if I'm experiencing this old cravings from these old patterns, let's go get drunk because I'm feeling bad, or let's go do whatever these escapist patterns are that we have. For me to drop into a body scan, it just doesn't resonate as much. But if I go from feeling this this restriction and constriction from whatever that is, anger, craving, fear, sadness, depression, whatever, it's not saying let's get them to go away. It's just saying those emotions are here, but I can also bring up this awareness of loving kindness, and I can also relax the mind and body, and that opens up this space to where the mind sees, okay, there's the emotion, there's those chemicals, as I was saying, that have been released for this feeling of depression, and that just exists. As the Buddha says, these come about from causes and conditions. Everything is cause and effect, and so this emotion has come up from who knows what sorts of causes in the past, but in some way due to having trained the mind that this is what we do. So it's here. I can't say go away feeling of depression, because it's here. Just like I can't tell this tree to go away. I just be equanimous that it's here, and I adjust, and instead of hating the tree for being here. I say, the tree is here, and so therefore, I'm not going to walk right where the tree is because I will run my head into it. But I don't need to have the story that the tree is evil because it's here, and I used to walk there, but now I walk there and run my head into it. It's the same with this feeling of depression. When I practice the 6 R's at the same time cultivating these wonderful feelings, mental and physical, then I'm able to be with the feeling of depression and recognize it's a feeling. There is an actual physical sensation and mental sensation, but I can let go of this story of, I hate being depressed. It's so terrible. It's not fair. This is due to my genes. It's due to this abuse that I experienced. This is just who I am. It's not fair. Other people are so happy and I'm not. And now I'm feeling the depression. I was just feeling happy, but now I know it's going to last all day and it's a bummer. I'm not going to accomplish anything. And this is the suffering. And this is what the 6 R's lets go. It doesn't let go of the feeling of depression. The feeling of depression is here. But what we find, and this was really massive eye-opener for me, is that I one of the cards that I put in the dark room, even though I can't see them in the dark room, I knew that they are there, and it's something that I repeat often from before, from TWIM, that I kind of created from little insights. Is I just wrote this on a piece of paper. Feeling gloomy? What does it feel like without this story? Because this feeling of gloom is one that I recognize. There's so many different emotions or feelings, and so to say depression, it's even just a big, what is it actually? For me, it feels this kind of gloomy, just like, like kind of things are a bit pointless and kind of hopeless, and I'm in this, it's just kind of, and so I recognize that's one that I experience regularly, so let's make it personal, but to remember the guidance. What does it feel like without the story? And I got really clear insights in the darkroom about this, that I would feel this anxiety, this depression, this fear, like I had some strong feelings of paranoia about relationships and all this stuff, but I had all this space and all this time, hours and hours and hours, where I'm just laying or sitting in meditation, and I can see where the mind's going as my skills are improving and this practice is going deeper in. So I can see how the mind does it. So I could see that the mind, some thought will bubble up. Who knows where it's from? It's from past causes and conditions. It's been dropped into the mind deep in, and so who knows what brings it up, and that little thought comes up and it says, hey, what about this? Think about this. And so then there would be, the mind would start inclining in that direction, start thinking about it, and then there would be the physical response, and these are the chemicals and whatnot being released to cause the body to feel the way that it's been trained to feel when it goes into these thoughts. And so with the paranoia or the fear, it's kind of like this tightness of the gut, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, and with the anxiety, it's like this, constriction and things. So you can feel it physically. You can also see the mind going, and so I would be able to see that this story that comes up is really what I'm feeling bad about, because when I just checked in, said feeling gloomy, what does it feel like without the story? So if I just check in with the body right now, how do I actually feel? Even if I was feeling those depressions or those whatevers, like actually I felt good. I wasn't being tortured. I wasn't having any sort of like serious physical issue or anything. There was no like immediate danger. Like actually the body felt pretty good, even with those physical chemical sensations. Felt pretty fine, pretty nice. Basically always. I said, it was one of the insights I recorded on the little audio. Is like, I basically always at least feel pretty fine. And often I'm feeling actually pretty good, but the mind is saying you shouldn't feel good because in the future maybe you're gonna run out of money, and then you're gonna have to do who knows what, and you can't help these people anymore or whatever. And it's like, well, if I just let that go and just be with this right now, I'm feeling pretty good. And so actually, I'm interested in feeling good, being happy, feeling at peace and feeling content. And if I let go of these stories and I just kind of be with this experience right now, I kind of got it. Like I feel happy, I feel at peace, and I feel content. And that was a real wow. And so that's another part of this practice that I can use in the day-to-day that I haven't found as easy with other practices, and with the Goenka body scanning specifically. So for me, the biggest is the practice. Now, a very big second reason that I really resonate with the TWIM is the access to the teachers. The teachers, every day in a TWIM retreat, except the first day when just kind of dropping in, there's going to be a Dhamma talk given in live, which is all they give Dhamma talks on are the suttas, which are the recorded words of Buddha, or sometimes his great disciples. Generally, basically always, they're using the ones by the Buddha, where the Buddha is giving basically instruction on how to meditate or on how to live life. Like what I just said was an instruction on meditation, not an instruction, but an example of meditation, and yet it was also an example of life. Buddha, he, like I said, I forget how many suttas there are. I think there's thousands. And he goes around the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering, there's a cause to suffering. There can be suffering. If there is suffering, there's a cause to that suffering. There is a cessation to that suffering, and there's a path leading to that cessation of the suffering. He goes around that hundreds of different ways. Even in the same sutta, he's giving different similes and giving different examples. So it's very, very deep, but it's also very simple. But it doesn't mean that it's easy. And so having it spoken live by a teacher who's far advanced in their practices, both meditation and in life, these are people who are equanimous and are at peace, to have them teaching and being able to answer questions or just to elucidate, I find it very beneficial. And then similar in the retreats every day, the teachers are going to have an in-person interview for a few minutes, but if it needs to be more, I've never once had a teacher say, hey, it's taking too long, you need to go. And I can talk sometimes, obviously, this is the 13th video. Or 14th. But they have this wisdom, and so they can, as we just learned, very small tweaks can make a very big difference. If I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to concentrate on the feeling of loving kindness, and they say, actually, don't concentrate on it. Open your space up a bit. So you're still collected around it. That's in the center, but you're not getting upset when the mind is going this place and that. That makes a big difference in my meditation. And as I shared with the video that I recorded about Goenka Vipassana meditation in June of 2022, I had a very powerful retreat there. And I shared this video about Goenka Vipassana. That was before I connected with TWIM. But one thing that I shared in there, if you go back and listen, is that for the previous year, up until this most recent Goenka retreat, because I did 3 retreats in the beginning, and then I had some time where I was unable to. I was in different countries where they didn't have them or whatnot. So I had about a year where I was doing self-practice, but I didn't have any interaction with teachers. And until that last retreat, so I realized in that last retreat that actually for the previous year, I had basically been missing the main part of the Goenka Vipassana practice because I had gotten sidelined into focusing on some things that were not appropriate to be focusing on. And so my results from that previous year, they had been beneficial, but they were nowhere near what would have been if I had been focusing appropriately. But I didn't know because I had no way of bouncing it off of other people. Because in my experience in the Goenka community, most practitioners don't speak very openly about their practice because The message can be that, oh, if I hear about another person's practice, then I might feel some sort of craving or jealousy or something, and so I'm limiting that contact. And I can appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons why the Buddha gave one of the precepts to the monks and the nuns, saying you cannot speak about your meditation practice with civilian people, with ordinary people. You can't speak about your levels of awakening or your abilities or anything, because that can create different things that are not appropriate or beneficial, because basically you're a professional at this. And so you can speak with the other monks and nuns in a way that is only for assisting each other and evolving. It can't be about bragging or things. So yes, I can appreciate that. But there's also great benefit in my personal experience with being with peers and saying, hey, I'm doing it this way. And they're like, oh, well, I'm doing it this way and I'm getting these results. And I say, oh, okay. And definitely with being with experienced masters, or at least people who are at a stage beyond me, to where they can say, yeah, that's a common pitfall, because I've taught Bhante Vimalaramsa, he says he's had, I heard in one of his Dhamma talks, which was recorded some years back, he said between 3,000 and 4,000 students, and that was years in the past. And Delson, Bhante Ananda, these other, Bhante Dhammagavesi, who is another teacher at one of the retreats, they've had at least hundreds of students, and so they can, in all different walks of life, and all different ability levels, and all different backgrounds, and all different hindrances, whether it's depression or it's anxiety or it's craving or it's whatever. So they can say, yes, we've seen similar things in our own lives and also with others, and they can give that very specific feedback. For me, it's been invaluable. And in this dark room, initially I was intending, okay, I'm going to do this all hardcore, and I'm going to not have any outside contact, and it's all about just being all by myself and moving through all that. And thankfully, on the 30th day, like a week before that, I decided I'm going to adjust this. And so I had a call with Bhante Ananda on the 30th day, and it opened up my mind so much about things that I just hadn't noticed, because I'm in my own little bubble of ignorance, basically, because I don't have lots of experience with this. And so I'm trying to take these very deep words and very deep practice, but with my limited ability or my limited experience and my historical background that may take it one way or another. And just to get his insight, the practice adjusted and turned a corner for the rest of the time. And subsequently I had another call with him. I had a call with Venerable Metananda, and I had a call with Delson, and I had 2 calls with another experienced meditator and TWIM instructor. So however that was, I think it's 7, every couple weeks. And every time I did it, it was apparent. Every time within the next day or 2, I had the deepest meditations of my life up to that point. Even sometimes it wasn't like they were sharing this deep wisdom of like, adjust your practice and go deep. Sometimes it was just like, yeah, it sounds like you're on the right track. Keep it up. Nice work. Good to hear. That's all it was. But to get me out of that little mental bubble of creating whatever stories or just kind of focusing on things, and to recognize, okay, yeah, things are going deep. And I had the deepest, the last 2 nights of the retreat after months, the last 2 nights where in the previous retreat, I didn't have this sort of practice. I had the practice that I just kind of put together, and I didn't have these external interactions. I did it all hardcore, and I didn't have any teacher interactions whatsoever. The previous retreat, last several weeks, I was struggling. I was like, I'm just ready to be done. Can I have the phone? Okay, I'm not going to do any real negative things, but I'm going to start planning. Every so often I would have the phone or the computer to like do some planning, or I got the Kindle every so often and I would read, because I was just like, the mind was like, we've been in here for months. We're ready to be done. This one, I actually asked if I could stay in for 2 weeks longer, but the doctor, he had some other things going, and he requested me to come out after those several months. And the last 2 nights, instead of me being like ready to go, let me fall asleep early so I can be, out, or let me just like wait up fantasizing about getting out, or let me have the phone so I could start planning the next thing. I had the deepest meditations of all that I've had in my whole life. Every one, I had like 2, 3 a night, both nights. And it was like, it was amazing. That is in part due to the practice, which helped me stay positive and motivated instead of ground down and burnt out. And it's partly due to being able to connect with and communicate with the teachers, and to have access to 4 teachers that I can communicate with. Actually, it really is 5. And I've been in 5 Goenka retreats. One of them was canceled a few days in due to the second surge in COVID here in India. So I have been with 5 different instructors, Goenka teachers. Of that, I believe 1 readily gave their contact information, 2 readily gave their contact information. 1 I had to jump through some hoops to get an email address for. And of that, I haven't been able to maintain communication with any of them, and I haven't really gotten any sort of assistance or instruction about like, hey, I'm going through this with the meditation. It's usually just like keep doing what you're instructed. Now, I don't have any judgment to these teachers in Goenka. I'm very appreciative to them because they're not full-time teachers. The teachers at TWIM, not all of them, but some of them are monks. This is what they do. Some of them, like Delson, Delson or the monks, they live on what is donated. They live on what is given. They don't have jobs. This is what they live the Dhamma. Whereas the teachers in Goenka, they generally have jobs and they are experienced with Goenka, and so they give it as a donation, their time and energy, and that's incredible. That's wonderful. Like I just said, the difference of going to a Goenka retreat where it's fully free, or going to a Tony Robbins experience or a Joe Dispenza experience or something like that where it costs money, it's very different. And part of that is due to the fact that people like the teachers are willing to donate their time because they know there's so much benefit in these practices. But the side effect of that is that they're not full-time teachers. They don't have all of this time to do things. And in my experience, it's just different with the Goenka retreats. The Goenka retreats are going to be very large generally, so the teacher doesn't have lots of time to interact one-on-one. The TWIM retreats, the largest I think I've been is around 30. The ones in Dhammasukha in the U.S., the one I attended was 13. And now they've built a few more cabins, so I think it's 20 or 21. But it's still, that's intimate. That's nice. So I think those are about it. Well, also with the practices, I just don't know how, like I said, with the focus on happiness and relaxing and joy, I think it would be much more difficult for me to have done a multi-month dark room with very little to no external interactions if I were doing Goenka or if I were doing noting. And I had a few months of practice with the noting just from reading the books, the Mahasi Sayadaw method, a few months of it. But both of those are really energetic in ways. They're not necessarily so relaxing, especially if done incorrectly as I was doing Goenka. And I did I did a little over 3 weeks darkroom that was just Goenka practice. That was at the end of 21. I kind of confounded the data because I also did a 2-week-long fast, 8 days of which were dry fast, and so that confuses things a bit because it causes the body and the mind to be a little bit less focused, and I'll share about that in suggestions. So I don't have a totally clear, I've never done a multi-week long just Goenka retreat, so I can't speak on how that is, but I feel like for doing multiple months in a darkroom, it would have been more difficult, more challenging, whereas this one, just dropping into these states, these jhanas, you're just at peace. And just, like I said, it's subtle, but once I gained the awareness of, I can see that subtle but really peaceful, tranquil, relaxed, enjoyable experience, then I'm not continually in the mind thinking, when's this going to be over? When's this going to be over? This pain, this discomfort. Even if there's pain and discomfort, that often disappears a bit or fully because the mind is not connecting with the body anymore. So, yeah, let's see if I had anything else. TWIM, their retreats, they are not free. Currently, they don't have... It's much smaller than Goenka-ji, and like I said, Goenka-ji set it up so incredibly to create this system to where most everyone there are volunteers, and then whomever wants to can donate, but there is no cost. TWIM is not yet that large or have it set up like that, so there is cost for the room and board, but the teachers and the Dhamma and that is always free and always, donations if wanted. Bhante Ananda and some of them, they attempt to do them free if they can on their own. And then in places like India, the cost is very, very minimal. But that does exist. And I think that's about it. So I think we have completed meditation. Now I will actually go into discussing the different darkness periods that I have experienced and insights, suggestions, cautions, things like that. So, namaste, friends. Radhe, Radhe.